Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/ADSR This series of videos will cover all of the features in Kontakt. We'll continue with the browser and the quick load menu in the output section. The Modules tab gives you quick access to Kontakt's signal processing and modulation source modules. Use this view to quickly find a module, read a detailed description of what it does and how it's used, and drag it directly into your instrument. At the top of the Modules tab is a toolbar with mode buttons. The first three are used for selecting the category of modules you want to browse. Effects. This category lists all of Kontakt's audio effects. These can be dragged into empty slots into the group insert effects, bus insert effects, instrument insert effects, and send effects sections. Some modules can only be used in certain places. If a module cannot be added to one of these places, Kontakt will change the mouse pointer to a stop icon when you drag the item to this place. Filters. This category lists all of Kontakt's filter modules. This category is subdivided between low pass, high pass, band pass, peak notch, multi, effect, and EQs. These subcategories are selected with the second row of buttons that appear under the toolbar. Filter modules can be dragged into the group insert effects, bus insert effects, and instrument insert effects. They cannot be dragged into the instrument send effects. Modulators. This category lists all of the internal and external modulation sources available. It's subdivided into envelopes, LFOs, other, and external. These subcategories are selected with the second row of buttons that appear under the toolbar. To create a new modulation, drag the module from the list onto the knob of the group parameter that you want to modulate. This opens a modulation router of the module and adds a new entry. You can then adjust the intensity, polarity, and other parameters. We'll look at modulation in detail a little later. Info. The rightmost button on the toolbar shows or hides the Info section at the bottom of the Modules tab. When you click a module, this section will display a detailed description of the module's function, potential uses, and all of its parameters. This is an excellent way to get familiar with all of Kontakt's effects, filters, and modulators. I highly recommend leaving this displayed. It can also be resized by dragging the separator bar. The Automation tab. To control parameters of an instrument using your sequencer's automation or a MIDI controller, you can use one of the automation sources in the Auto tab. At the top of the tab are two buttons that allow you to switch between a list of automation sources provided by your host or MIDI controllers. Assigning a source to a parameter works the same way in both lists. Simply drag a source from the list onto the knob whose parameter you want to automate or control. If you want to assign a control of a keyboard or MIDI controller, but don't know which controller number is the correct one, simply move the control on your keyboard or MIDI controller when a list is visible. Kontakt will flash a red lightning bolt icon next to the list entry when it receives MIDI controller data. This allows you to quickly spot and assign the correct controller. You can edit assignments and their parameters by selecting them in the list. If the selected item is assigned to one or more parameters, they will show up in the list below. At the bottom of the pane, you can adjust some parameters of the assignment that's selected. From % to %. This allows you to alter the scaling of the assignment so that automation values are mapped to a limited range of the assigned parameter. Reducing this range also allows for a finer automation resolution. Soft takeover. Enabling this prevents sudden parameter jumps if received data is different from the current value. When enabled, the assigned parameter will not move until it receives a value that matches its current value. Remove. This button deletes the automation assignment that's selected in the lower list. You can also use the MIDI learn function to assign MIDI controllers. Simply right-click on the knob or slider you want to assign to a MIDI controller and select Learn MIDI CC Automation. Next, move the control on your controller. If you can't assign MIDI controllers using the Automation tab or MIDI Learn, there is an alternative way. Just set the MIDI port and channel of your instrument to your hardware controller. Click the browser's Automation tab, then turn the knob or move a fader on your hardware controller. You'll see a flash next to the CC number that's used by your controller. The MIDI icon in the instrument header should also flash as well. Drag and drop the MIDI CC you want to use onto the knob or slider you wish to control. To remove an assignment made to a specific controller, click on the browser's Automation tab. Select the MIDI Automation subtab. Find the MIDI controller whose assignment you wish to remove. Select the control in the list and click the Remove button. We'll look at automation in detail a little later. The quickload catalog. The quickload catalog is a hierarchical directory structure that lets you manage your instruments, banks, and multis. You can freely organize a catalog without having to worry about paths, relationships, or formats. I think the quickload catalog is the most important and flexible browser in Kontakt because it can be organized any way you see fit. It only lacks search capabilities. This is also another way to get your third-party and custom content in a list-type view similar to the Libraries tab. To manage the catalog, use the quickload browser, which appears below the rack when you right-click inside the empty space of the instrument rack. Another right-click inside the empty part of the rack hides the browser again. Also, as long as the quickload button is visible, it will hide the on-screen keyboard. The quickload browser displays multiple layers of a directory tree in a horizontal arrangement of columns. When you click a subdirectory in one column, the column to the right will display that directory's contents. You navigate through your directory structure from left to right until you found what you've been looking for. At the top of the pane are 3 buttons, which allow you to switch between the catalogs of multis, banks, and instruments. There is also a lock button which prevents the catalog from being changed. And next to the lock button is an X button which closes the quickload browser. When you first open the quickload browser, it'll be empty. To fill it with content, you create your directories and drag files from the browser or from your desktop. Right-click in the list inside the leftmost column and choose Add New Folder. Give it a meaningful name and repeat these steps for every directory you would like to create at the root level. To create subdirectories, click on one of the entries in the leftmost column and create more subdirectories in the column to the right. To rename a folder, double-click it or right-click and choose Rename Folder. To delete a directory and all of its subcontents, right-click its entry and choose Delete from Quickload. To fill your directories with content, simply drag one or more files from the browser or your desktop into the column of the directory which you'd like to put them in. When you are dragging, you can still navigate through the quickload catalog by moving your mouse across the directory entries that you would like to switch to. To remove an object from the directory of the catalog, right-click its entry and choose Delete from Quickload. To load objects from the catalog, select the kind of object using the type switches. Navigate from left to right until you found an entry. Load it by double-clicking or dragging it into the rack. You can also right-click on an entry and choose Load. If you have a multi open, you can replace an entry in a slot by dragging the new entry onto the slot or right-clicking the entry and choosing Load into Slot. You can also load objects using the quick load menus. In the main control panel, click on Files, New Instrument from List, or Files, New Instrument Bank from List. It contains the entire structure of the respective catalog as a list of menus and submenus. The same menus appear if you click the small down arrows inside the name fields of the instrument, banks, and rack headers. The output section. The output section provides a routing and mixing environment similar to a mixing console. The outputs from all instruments arrive in the section and then are routed to the physical outputs of your audio interface or into your host software. The output section allows you to create, delete, rename, and configure mono, stereo, or multi-channel output channels. It also allows you to rename and configure aux channels, change the output volume of output and aux channels, add, remove, or edit signal processors, and monitor your output levels. To show and hide the output section, click on the Output button in the main control panel. The output section is laid out with output channels followed by 4 aux channels. First, you have the channel name. You can change it by clicking on the field and entering a new name. The channel insert slots. This is used for signal processing modules that act as insert effects on the channel signal. It works exactly how the group, bus, or instrument effects sections work. This is only visible if the Show Insert button is activated. Then you have the channel fader and the level meter. The fader controls and displays the output gain of this channel. And last but not least, you have the channel configuration button. Clicking this button opens a new dialog window, which lets you configure the channel's name, number of audio channels, and its physical output assignment. The output section also has a toolbar. First, you have your presets batch configuration. This is a drop-down menu containing options for saving, resetting, or reconfiguring the output section. Save output section preset as. This saves the current configuration. Presets will appear at the bottom of the presets on batch configuration menu. Save current output section state as default 4. This saves the current configuration as a default for the specific plugin types. This includes all, standalone, audio units, VST, VST8, VST16, and AAX RTAS. The next time Kontakt is opened in that format, the save configuration will be used. Delete output section setting. This deletes save configuration presets. Batch functions. Clear output section and create one individual channel for each loaded instrument. This will delete all output channels and create a new channel, one for each instrument in the rack. Rename output section channels according to assigned instruments. This renames the output channels to the name of the instruments assigned to them. Split instruments routed to first output channel to individual outputs. When you have multiple instruments assigned to the first output channel, this function will assign each instrument to individual output channels. If channels already exist, the instrument will be assigned to the next channels after the first one in order from left to right. Channels will be created if necessary. Reset output section to target's default. This resets the configuration to the specific plugin default. Add channel. This opens a dialog to create and configure new output channels. Quantity. This is the number of output channels to create. Number of channels. This is the number of audio channels the output channel will carry. Sound card host output. This is the physical or virtual audio channel the output channel should be assigned to. Ascending output assignment. When this option is checked, the channels will be assigned to the first available physical virtual audio channel from lowest to highest. Delete existing channels before creating new ones. When enabled, existing channels will be deleted before creating the new ones. Make this your default configuration. If enabled, the current configuration will be saved as default for the current plugin type. Delete channel. This removes the currently selected channel from the output section. To select the channel, click on its border. Show inserts. This toggles whether the insert slots will be shown. Edit effect. This toggles the display of the control panel of the currently selected signal processing module in the insert slots. The X button closes the output section. You can route the output signal of each instrument to any output channel defined in the output section. Each channel can carry between 1 and 16 audio channels. To change the number of audio channels carried by an output channel or its physical output assignment, click the bottom of the channel strip. In the channel configuration dialog, you have the channel name, which is the name of the channel. It can be changed by clicking on it. Audio channels. This adjusts the number of audio channels the channel will carry up to its maximum of 16. To change the number, click the field and drag your mouse up or down. Output map. This displays all audio channels of this output channel along with their assigned physical destinations. These are either output jacks of your audio interface or virtual connections to your host. To change the physical assignment, click its name and choose a new output from the drop-down menu. Previous Next buttons. This allows you to jump the settings of the previous or next channels. OK and Cancel button. Click OK to save your changes and close the dialog. And click Cancel to discard your changes and close the dialog. The 4 aux channels are identical to output channels, but receive their signal from the rack header in the multi-instrument mode, or rerouting the output signal from a sound effects slot. Aux channels also receive their signal from the sound effects slot using the gainer module. Apart from this, aux channels work exactly the same as output channels. We'll take a look at using effects, aux channels, and routing in detail in a later tutorial. When Kontakt is being used in standalone mode, the assignment of physical outputs within the channel configuration is pretty straightforward. The drop-down menu contains all outputs up to 32, which are provided by your audio interface. When you use Kontakt as a plugin, it's a little bit more complicated. The maximum number of mono audio channels that you can assign in host mode is limited to 32 for the VST version and 16 for the audio unit and RTAS versions. The VST plugin comes with 3 different variations, with 8, 16, or 32 outputs. With the audio unit and RTAS plugins, the number of outputs is determined by the host. Whenever you change the output configuration, you must restart Kontakt for the changes to take effect. It's helpful to create various configurations and save them via the presets batch configuration menu. Also, the output configuration of each Kontakt instance will be saved with each song. This can lead to unexpected behavior when reloading songs. It is recommended to make all output configuration changes to the default for that specific plugin type. We finished going over the browser and took a look at the quickload catalog, so you should be comfortable organizing and finding your Kontakt data. We also looked at the output section and showed you how to add and configure channels. Next up, we'll go over the group editor and the mapping editor. And don't forget to check out our website at www.kontakttutorials.com for more tutorials on Kontakt, ADSR Kontakt tutorials, supercharge your Kontakt skills. This is DJ Nice signing off until next time. Now go make some music.